Yeah, so the meeting will be recorded. Let's start. Good morning. Yes, let's start sharing. I don't know if it's better. Yeah, it's better like this. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
But not in presentation mode, right? Now?
Now, perfect.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So, yeah, so welcome again to this Open Science course. Today we are here for the first module, which is about why do we need open science. As you can see, the slides are here. They have a Creative Commons license, so feel free to reuse. And they are also available on Zenodo, on the repository Zenodo. So please, Gabriela, if you can put the link in the chat so that you can have the slide to be downloaded. And a bit of housekeeping before starting. Of course, please mute your mic because the lesson will be recorded, as we said. And if you keep your mic open, you would spoil the recording for future listeners. So please keep your mic silent. Of course, there will be a break after the first part, and the questions will be taken at the end of the first part, so not to interrupt the recording. Of course, if a doubt of anything comes to your mind, feel free to write in the chat, and then we will read the questions during the break. Yes, so at the beginning, just to test your initial awareness on open science, I invite you to go to the website www.menti.com. You will be asked to input a code, and the code for today is 58024965. So now I can stop sharing this. Stop sharing. Can you still, do you still see the yeah, but I have an issue here because I can't share my screen. Yeah, interrompi presentazione. Okay. Okay, now. Can you see the Menti now? Can you see the Menti slide with the code? 024965.
Yes.
Great. So please go to www.menti.com and use this code. It's just a sort of, initial test just to see the level of awareness, and we will use it also at the end of the course to check if everything you wanted to know about open science was really in the course, or if we need to go in depth on other issues. So please join us on www.menti.com using this code 58024965. I see people joining. 3. That's the first question for you. How would you rate your knowledge about open science in this moment? So do you think you are ground zero, beginner, intermediate, expert? A lot of beginners, it seems. Yeah, but we have only five people connected, so we are waiting for more people to join. Okay. Okay, so thank you for answering. We are still waiting for people to join www.menti.com and use the code 58024965. It's important for me also to better tailor, what to stress during the course and what issues are you interested in. Okay, so next question. What do you expect to learn during this course? And again, it's important because we'll check at the end. Here you have to input free text. So you can write it down, whatever you expect to learn during this course on Open Science A to Z. And during our last lesson on next Monday, we'll see if everything was addressed or not. Wide and critical perspective about open science and fair data to fix concept related to open science. Main point, at least, okay? Understand more open science and be implicated. That's great. That's great. To be involved, that's great. I need to be up to date in open science. Great. Okay. So it's also a very practical, I would say, purpose for you in attending this course. Great. And the next one, in your opinion, if you have to define scholarly communication, what is it in your words? What is scholarly communication? What's the first thing you think when I say scholarly communication? Because again, it's important to get your perspective on the issues we are going to discuss in the next few hours. Let's refresh this again. Because I don't know why, but today the network here at the University of Turin is not so quick and effective. Okay, communication among scholars, communication of science, how we deliver information and engage students, extended academic network allowing research collaboration, especially in multidisciplinary area. Great. This one I like particularly because you talk about collaboration, communication among scholars. We will discuss it. Okay, great. And what about open science? In your opinion, what is open science? This is, again, is important because it gives me your perspective on open science. Because usually the answers I get to the previous questions, to the previous question about scholarly communication are quite different. So I'm curious about your answer to this question. What is open science for you? Science data free and open for all, great. Freely sharing of research outputs, yes. So this idea of sharing, of course. Yeah, this I like particularly because it's research carried out in collaboration with non-academic community, which is a specific component of open science, which is citizen science. But anyway, this idea of engaging non-academic community is very important, and we will discuss it. Engagement with other people, yes, open science is the future of the university. It should be, of course, I agree because I'm very passionate about open science. But as you can see, we are a consortium of how many university? 5, 6, 7, how many? Okay. And how many people are here this morning? So it should be the future of university, but as you can see, it seems that nobody is interested in these topics, or maybe they already know everything and they are already performing open science. Open knowledge, great. I know, I like this one particularly because it's not just about science, but it's about knowledge. So we will discuss it during this morning. And the next one, I think, yeah, you will find a series of sentences. And please tell us if you strongly disagree, which is 0, or if you strongly agree with the sentence, which is 5. And the sentences are: impact factor is a measure of quality. The current research assessment criteria improve research quality. The current scholarly communication system perfectly fits the needs of science. Peer review is a quality seal. Authors and reviewers are equally paid for their work. I have access to everything I need, so why should we discuss open access? Today, reading is for free, so why should I pay to publish? And the publication system perfectly supported COVID-19 crisis. Please tell us if you strongly disagree, or if you strongly agree, or if you are in the middle. So you have a rating from 0 to 5, and you will see that there will be a sort of ranking here. Okay. Okay, we have 3 votes for, so still waiting for someone else. Okay, so as you can see here, okay, 7 people voting. Okay, authors and reviewers are equally paid for their work. Actually, is false, because you are not paid when you publish on scientific journals. Today reading is for free, so why should I pay to publish? Again, it's false, because today reading is absolutely not for free, and we will discuss it. Peer review is a quality seal. Again, we will discuss it. The current research assessment criteria improve research quality. I would say precisely the opposite. And like impact factor is a measure of quality, is a measure of bad quality. But anyway, so basically all these sentences, I know that they are commonly, they are widespread among the academic community, but basically they are all false. So we will discuss them during the first module today, and you will see that we need to look at scholarly communication with critical eyes, and this is what we are going to do this morning. Okay, so let's stop. Please don't vote here, of course, because this is supposed to be at the end. We will go back. So now I go back to my slides, which of course I can't find. Okay. Can you see the slides again? Yes. Is it fine? Yeah, okay, great. So after the Menti, so thank you for collaborating with this Menti. Thank you for sharing your views with us. So this is basically the syllabus of our course. Today we are going to see why do we need open science and what is open science and what is not, basically. On next Monday we will see open science in practice, meaning practical tools to open up your every step of your research, plus a focus on open access, because it seems to be still an issue. And then on March the 6th, we will see data, everything about data management. And on March 13, we will see about FAIR principles, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable, and how to draft a data management plan. And on March 27, we will see open science in Horizon Europe, because you know that in Horizon Europe, your research proposal will be evaluated also on how you adopt and adapt open science practices. So open science has been moved to the evaluation part of your project proposal. So that's our syllabus. What are we going to see during this course? First of all, why do we need open science? And the question should be also put as, does current scholarly communication work? And as you might guess, my answer would be no. So the current scholarly communication does not work, and we will see why. We will see also some lessons learned from COVID-19, because COVID-19 made it crystal clear that sharing is the only way to go. If you want to go further in science, you have to share your data. And our mindset should shift from publishing to knowledge sharing, which is completely different. And then that's why I really appreciate this definition you gave during the Menti. So it's about open knowledge and not about open publications. So that's great. If I would ask you what's the opposite of open science, you might say it's closed, okay? Open and closed. And John Tennant, who used to be one of the most passionate advocates for open science, who tragically died a few years ago, he used to say that the opposite of open science is bad science. And we will see why, because of course, if you don't share your data, if your research process is not transparent, if you are not reproducible, it's bad science, it's not closed science. And we will see, of course, what's going on in Europe, what's new about open science, about FAIR, because, you know, we are in the era of EOSC, of the European Open Science Cloud, of the FAIR principles, and we need to be ready. As you can read this quote from this article, there is a value and risk of being a first mover. There is a higher risk of being a follower, because of course open science brings a lot of benefits. So the first comers are all, they can take all the benefits, and we risk really to be left beyond. What about open science? The reaction of our fellow researcher is this one. So no thanks, we are too busy, and I think we have evidence also this morning. Everyone has everything else to do. but attending a course on open science. But actually, I think you are busy carrying a cart with a square wheel. And open science would provide a round wheel, so will make your research process easier, more streamlined, more effective. But of course, you are busy in doing anything else. Our approach to open science will be to discuss the transformative potential of open science. If you don't think that open science is just, something that can make science a better world and make science more responsive to societal needs, you will see open science just the umpteenth administrative burden. Okay, I have a policy to comply to, or something like this, which of course is not. And this is another very important point. So open science is not the goal, is not the purpose, it's just a way to create a better science, a sounder science because it's more transparent, and a science which will be more responsive to societal needs. And that's why we'll focus more on the why and not on the rules, okay? So first of all, we will see why we need open science, and then we will see how to do open science. And this is a very strong call, calling home. Why should you care about open science? Because as I was saying at the beginning, in Horizon Europe, your research project will be evaluated on how you adapt open science practices. So it's important for you to learn about open science. If not, your project risks to not to be funded in Horizon Europe. Are there reasons not to go open science? When I saw this preprint some years ago, the title was Valid Reasons Not to Participate in Open Science Practices. I was really curious because, in the abstract, I saw the past years have seen a sharp increase in the attention for open science practices, including pre-registration, preprint, open access to publishing, reproducibility of research. Despite the overwhelming amount of evidence highlighting the benefits of open science, some researchers remain reluctant. In this paper, I will outline valid reasons for researchers not to participate in open science practices, and that's the paper. There are no valid reasons. So that's all for us for today. Thank you for your undivided attention. So of course, I'm kidding. And today we learn why do we need open science. We will see a very critical approach to the current scholarly communication system, and we will focus on research evaluation because it's changing right now, at least in Europe. Some take-home message for this first part of the course. Open science is just science done right, and we will see this message time and again. And the reaction, the typical reaction I got during the last, I would say, 10 years, yes, but we are still evaluated on impact factor, is no longer true because research assessment is changing. So stay tuned because we have big news on research evaluation. If you ask me what's the best example of open science, I would say the HTTP protocol. You know that when Sir Tim Berners-Lee invented the HTTP protocol, he used to work at CERN in Geneva, and it was supposed to be an internal tool to exchange documents among research groups at CERN. The CERN in Geneva could have patented it, could have kept it closed as an internal tool. They decided to open it, and basically they changed our life, because I think that you can't imagine your life today without the HTTP protocol, which is what is making the World Wide Web working. So I really think that's the best example of open science in practice, something that can change our life on a daily basis. We should evolve towards an era of open research. As you can see here, now researchers tend to be very jealous of their data, of their outputs. They might have fear of being scooped or something like this. So we have to evolve towards an era in which we share and we collaborate. As you said in the Menti, I really appreciate this idea of collaborating, of engaging people also outside academia. And from a technical point of view, from the point of view of people supporting research, our task would be to make it too easy not to do for you. So basically, you don't care about our acronyms, you don't care about the name of your repository, you just want to get from point A to B. And again, this is our task, because if not, I mean, open science is still unknown or misunderstood. If we make it difficult, it wouldn't help. So for us, the task is really to make it too easy for you not to do. And first of all, a question for you. Of course, this is in Italian, but you don't read Italian, and this is not the question. The question is, why do you do research? So why did you choose in the first place to be a researcher in your early days? And please keep this question in mind when I will be talking about scholarly communication, about open science, and so on. So why do you do research? Because look at this. I chose to study science because I wanted to publish in Nature, said no undergraduate student ever. And it only takes a few years of working in science before most researchers will be preoccupied with scholarly journal brands, some to the point of obsession. Okay, so this is what scholarly communication became, just publishing in prestigious journal, which I guess is not what you meant when you choose to be a researcher in the first place. And please, today, let's look at scholarly communication with fresh eyes. Let's take a moment to critically reflect on what we are doing. Everything I will say will have a source. I will point out in the slide. You will have the link to the original document I'm based my discussion on. And I forgot to mention that the slides are available and there is no copyright issue because all the photos are mine, all the background photos are mine. And of course, they are available for you to reuse. So what about scholarly communication? Scholarly communication is a complex thing. And that's why I asked you in the Menti, if I say scholarly communication, do you think, what do you think of? And it was a bit of surprise for me seeing your replies, your answer in the Menti, because usually when I ask what is scholarly communication, researchers tend to reply papers. Journal papers, publication, books, or something like this. So referring to the final output of scholarly communication, which can be a book or a conference proceeding or a journal paper or something like this. And actually, scholarly communication is very complex, as you can see here, because first of all, we have different production means. I am old, so when I wrote my PhD dissertation, when my PhD dissertation was still, I was still writing on paper, and I still went to physical libraries to read books and journals and so on. Now everything is digital. And if you think about the difference of disciplines. You have different channels, because maybe in the humanities you are still linked to a big book. Maybe you are producing critical edition, taking years of your academic work. If you are in STM, so in science and technology, maybe you are using more journal articles, maybe you are co-authoring it, whilst in the humanities you usually are the single author, and something like this. Then we have an issue about preservation, because we still have manuscript from the 15th centuries or before. But if you have a floppy disk, maybe you no longer have the hardware device to read a floppy disk, or if you save something on a CD, then the CD will break or something like this. So in the digital era, we have some preservation issues, and we will discuss them at large during our data module, so the third module of this course. And we have rights issues, because when you talk about access, when you talk about the possibility of having access to previous researches, there should be a balance of rights among authors, readers, and the publishers. And we will see that currently the balance is strongly in favor of publishers. And this brings us to the economy label that you see here, to the costs linked to the scientific, to the scholarly communication market, because in the Menti, we had this sentence: today reading is for free. Actually, it's not for free. Publishers are making huge profits on a job that you gave for free, because you are not paid when you publish in a scientific journal. And we will discuss a lot about the real costs of publishing and the cost of prestige. As you can see here, I put a red label here, which is research evaluation, because everything here is based on research evaluation. The current research evaluation criteria are the one supporting this ineffective system of scientific journals, of publishers getting a lot of money out of your work, and of a system which in the long run is no longer sustainable. But if you are still evaluated on the highest impact factor journal in which you publish, of course, the libraries should buy this journal, and the system perpetuates this ineffective way. If you think about the functions of scholarly communication, at the center for century, we had the journals. You see the Philosophical Transaction, the first journal, 1665, and the four classical functions of a journal were registration, meaning that you have a specific date in which you publish your research; certification, which is the peer review process, meaning that some peers certificate that your research is a sound one, that your research process was, I would say, was scientifically sound, and so on. Awareness, because again, if you even have an idea worth a Nobel Prize, but nobody knows because it's just on your desk, who cares? And archiving. And this is very important, because research is an incremental process. So if future researchers have no access to what previous researchers did, they could reinvent the wheel, because the wheel is useful. And if you don't know that the wheel has already been invented, you might duplicate effort and reinvent the wheel. So these were the four traditional function of scholarly communication. Unfortunately, during the last century, the reward function was added. So basically, you use the same tool, which is the journal, both to disseminate your research and to be evaluated. And this was really all the evil come from this impact factor and from using the same tool both to disseminate research and to be evaluated. We will see all the perverse effects that this kind of research assessment based on prestige and on the impact factor brought to scholarly communication and to science. And Professor Jean-Claude Guédon wrote this wonderful piece about scholarly communication and scholarly publishing. And he said that nowadays publication and academic journal are getting in the way of communicating science. So they are no longer supporting and they are no longer functional to communicate science, but they are getting in the way, and we will see how. And also at the center, we no longer have only journals. As you can see in this wonderful project by two Dutch colleagues, Bianca Kramer and Jeroen Bosman, 101 Innovation in Scholarly Communication, you have several tools, you have platforms, you have different tools, so the journal is no longer at the center. And then we have some lessons learned from COVID, because now we seem to ignore that we were blocked for 2 years. We had lockdown. We had a lot of people dying from this disease, and now it seems that everything is coming normal again. It depends on what we think that normal is, but anyway. The pandemic is a life-size experiment that reminded us that the ultimate goal of science is to advance knowledge, not egos, not numbers. This was a tweet by Sherif Abou Kashem at the Open Science Conference in Paris last year. It was really important to remind us that science is for a better society, is not about your H index or is not about the impact factor. As you can see here, the COVID-19 crisis has made openness seems the logical choice. And if you want to read more, you have one article in Italian, if you can read Italian, and another article in English saying basically the same thing, that open science is a must, okay? Another lesson learned from COVID is that we need data. And we need data to be fair, findable, accessible and reusable by design. We need data. We no longer need only the final synthesis of your research, which is the article, okay? The article was the only way we had to disseminate science in the paper age, okay? Now we have the web, and we can share basically the entire research process. And what was really clear during the COVID crisis is that sharing the virus sequences brought vaccines in a very short time. So that's the idea behind here. We need data and not only articles. And why do we need data? Because open data save lives. Another lesson learned from COVID, even though we need journal papers, we need results immediately. Studies should be available immediately and not being segregated for months or years, waiting for a peer review, which can be done otherwise in a more effective way, like open peer review. Look at this example. This paper was submitted in June 2019, and it was published in April 2022. It's nonsense if you think about the pandemic. In the current scholarly communication system, we would have seen the first articles on COVID-19 at the earliest in December 2020. It's really nonsense. Another lesson learned from COVID, if you have a spare 20 minutes, please listen and watch this keynote speech by Robert Terry at the Open Science Fair in 2021. Robert Terry works at the World Health Organization, and he gave this wonderful speech telling us that only less than 25% of the scientific material included in the WHO living guidelines on COVID-19 came from traditional journal, scientific journal. So talking about academic publishers, he said, they failed us right when we needed them more. And why is it so? Because basically the paper were inaccessible, because were subscription based, or were published after 2 years. So basically they really failed us. And another important message from Robert Terry, we need to rethink the order, and we need to rethink publishing. First, you immediately publish your results as a preprint. Then you go for open peer review, meaning that it's the entire community discussing your idea. And then you earn a real impact. You earn impact in real life, not using the impact factor, which Robert Terry defined as a toxic indicator, because it's right being awarded a gold medal without even run a race. Okay, so I think really these are important messages. Another lesson learned from COVID. It was the beginning of the pandemic, as you can see here. So it also gives me the possibility to show you that everything is documented, everything is evidence-based, because in the slides you have the link to the original paper or the original data. So as you can see here, February 2020, we are opening everything. Scientists share coronavirus data in an unprecedented way to contain and treat disease. Okay, that's great, but the flip side is that our normal behavior is to put barriers to science. And look at this other wonderful example. This comes from Nature, calling all coronavirus researchers, keep sharing, stay open, and then you can see here, subscribe, which is really, how can I put it, an oxymoron, just to put it mildly. So what did publishers do during the COVID-19? They issued a press release on March 13, 2020, saying that they, as they know, so they reckon that what they publish save lives, but they open only articles on COVID-19 and only for the duration of the outbreak. So basically what they opened in March 2020 nowadays has already been closed again, okay? Which is really nonsense. They acknowledge that opening the papers will speed progress and save lives, but at the same time, they are only doing it for a limited time and for a single disease. So it's really unreal, and it's nonsense. Why only coronavirus? Is Alzheimer or cancer or the climate change or violence against women less important issues? So that's the point. We don't know which research papers that today remain inaccessible could inspire solution and bright ideas for tomorrow challenges. So that's why everything should be open. On the contrary, what we are doing today, we are paying commercial publishers to lock up content produced by public money, because don't forget that we are public universities funded by public money, a content that you authored for free because you are not paid when you publish in Nature or any academic journal, and that you review it for free because you are the reviewers and you are not paid when you perform peer review. And then during a pandemic, we have to beg publisher for access to our own content. How many times have you seen this pop up? $8.99 to rent the article for 48 hours without printing or saving, to buy cloud access without printing or saving, or $32 to buy a PDF if your library has no subscription. So basically, nowadays, the system is like this. You write the papers, you review the papers. Why should you pay to read them? Is really nonsense. First reminder, if you close your results behind a subscription journal, the result is also that good and solid science stays behind paywalls, while a lot of misinformation is openly accessible. Let's discuss scholarly communication through numbers. Here you see some numbers: $1 billion for 4.4 million euros, $7.6 billion, 36%, which now is 38, but anyway, and 521%. If we were in a physical room, I would ask you to guess what these numbers means. And of course, we are virtual, so I would tell you. 1 billion is the amount of money, the estimated cost of your time as peer reviewers. So if publishers had to pay you for peer review, they would spend 1 billion, but of course they are not paying you. 4 is the time that any research institution pays for research, because they give you a wage, they give you a fund for your research. Once you publish your research in a journal paper, your institution has to buy back your research in form of subscription to the academic journal, to the academic journals. And here you have the other amount of money, which is 4.4 million euros, which is the amount of money that my university, the University of Turin, is spending every year in journal subscriptions. Every year. Maybe you are not aware of this cost because it's not out of your pocket, it's out of the pocket of the library, but anyway, it's public money, is the money of your institution, and for the institution of Turin is 4.4 million. So please go to your library and ask how much money do they spend in subscription on a yearly basis. For researchers, it's like going to a restaurant, bringing all of your own ingredients, cooking the meal yourself, and then being charged $40 for a waiter to bring it out on a plate for you, because $40 is the pay-per-view amount of money that you pay if your library has no subscription. And then, of course, you have the reuse rights. 521% is the increase in serials expenditures in the year that you see here. And it's ironic, but you see, this is the last data that I could get because it was the last report openly available. Then you have to pay because it becomes closed, okay? Do you think that library budget increased by 521% in the last years? Of course not. So libraries had to cut subscription, which is nonsense in the web era. Because if you think of it, if the library cut a journal, as a reader, you can read less, And as an author, you are read less. So it's really nonsense. Here you have another number, which is 7.6 billion, which is the underestimated amount of money spent globally in subscription in 2016. And I'm referring to 2016 because in this year, the Max Planck Gesellschaft published a white paper showing that if you divide this amount of money, which is 7.6 billion, per the number of paper published in this year, which is 1.5 million in Web of Science and 2 million in Scopus, you will get that nowadays in the subscription model, so I'm not talking about article processing charges, I'm not talking about paid open access here, I'm talking about the subscription model. So if you divide the amount of money that globally are spent in subscriptions per the amount of papers published every year, you get that nowadays we pay from $3,800 to $5,000 per article in the subscription system. I'm not discussing open access. I stress it. So today, reading is not for free. But as we saw during the Menti, normally researchers think that today reading is for free because simply you click on download PDF and the PDF magically appears. But it's not magic. It's because your library is paying 4.4 million euros per year, at least at the University of Turin. But we are paying to close. Because once you graduated, once you are outside your institution, pay the subscription, you are no longer allowed to download this PDF. And if you think about your medical doctor, if you think about a lawyer, if you think about an engineer, anyone after graduation no longer have access to academic, to the latest academic findings because they no longer have the money to subscribe. In this scenario, 38% is the net gain of Elsevier. Elsevier is the giant academic publisher. If you compare to other giants, as you can see, like Google or like Apple, and if you look at this graph, you will see that they have the highest net gain compared to other big companies. It's, of course, it's normal because basically they don't pay the raw material because they don't pay you as author, they don't pay you as reviewer. So that's how they can get 38% of net gain. Let's think about it on another perspective, on another point of view. We are talking public money. It means that out of 1 million of public money by which we pay subscription, 380,000 euros are going to the private shareholders of Elsevier. It does not make sense, or better, how can you relate this to scholarly communication? How can you relate this to science? No way. And by the way, in 2021, the 7.6 billion became 10 billion, okay? And publishers would want more. If you are not aware of the amount of money, let's take this quiz created by colleagues at the University of Virginia. Which is more expensive, The estimated cost of access to Wiley Online Library in 2025, or 2 months at sea in the south of France with 12 of your closest friends and a crew of 12 people. And of course, Wiley is more expensive. So if you are not aware about the amount of money, please take the quiz. And as you can imagine, my choice of the background slides is not casual. So if you apply the same logic of prestige, because of course, I don't know if you are aware, but the subscription to Nature costs a lot more than the subscription to the Turin Journal of Open Science, okay? If you apply the same logic of prestige to open access, it's the same because publishers will ask you for premium APCs, article processing charges, okay? So basically, prestige is a recipe for disaster, okay? Look at this prospectus, which was issued in 2018 when Springer Nature was going for a public offering. Brand strength is becoming increasingly important. Our open access portfolio includes a large number of leading brands, positioning us well to command premium APCs from authors. In another point you can read, Springer Nature was one of the first academic publishers to actively embrace the opportunities offered by open access, which provides us additional opportunities to generate revenues. So when publishers come into campuses and tell you that they are supporting scholarly communication, they are supporting open science, they are supporting open access, is not true. The truth is open access scholarly communication subscriptions are just a way to generate revenues. And look here at the end, some of our journals are among the open access journals with the highest impact factor, providing us with the ability to charge higher APCs for these journals than for a journal with average impact factor. This should be a mandatory reading. And as you can see, there was an argument after the prospectus was issued. And here is the Springer Nature lawyer speaking and writing. A prospectus is a legal document aimed at potential investors, not a marketing tool for authors or librarians. Again, it's up to you if you want to believe them when they come to campuses and tell you that they are supporting scholarly communication. Is not true. It's just marketing. Their only purpose is to get money, and a lot of money, 38% of net gain, out of scholarly communication. And as I was saying, this is about open access APCs, which is the AVIL, but the same is true for subscriptions. And again, it's up to you. This is a tragicomic TikTok video, so 2 minutes. It was issued when Nature issued a press release telling us that Nature, if you want to publish in open access a single article in Nature, you have to pay $11,500 for a single article to be published open access in Nature. This is not open access, okay? We will discuss open access. We will have a focus on open access on next Monday in our next module. This is not open access. This is a betrayal of open access and open science, as we will see even today. And as you can see here, if you can read Italian, if not, I can translate. Open access at any cost is not an option, okay? So this is not open access. This is a betrayal of the spirit and the principle of open access and open science. Reminder number 2, publishing should serve science, but it doesn't. Science seems to serve publishers. This is Kostas Glinos speaking. Kostas used to be the chief the head of the unit Open Science at the European Commission. And look at this. This is a sort of schema of a workflow of the research process. And these are the tools that Elsevier bought or created in the past years. So basically now they cover the entire workflow with a bit of conflict of interest because they are providing both Scopus, which is the platform on which you find, Science Direct, which is the platform on which you find papers to read, and Scopus or Scival, which are tools to evaluate you. So there is a bit of conflict of interest. And that's true for every publishing group. As you can see here, Springer Nature, Wiley, Taylor, and Francis, they are all doing the same. So acquiring tools, and look, this was last week, okay? Springer Nature acquiring ToolWrite, which is a collaborative writing tool. Again, taking control of the entire research workflow, no longer just publication. Problem is, and if you have time, I really invite you to read this landscape analysis update created and written by Claudio Aspesi, who is an economist. They are no longer publishers, even on their homepage. If you look at the Elsevier homepage, Elsevier is a leader in information and analytics. Because what are they doing now? I mentioned Scopus, I mentioned Science Direct. So basically they have the data. They track your behavior as researchers. They have the data about what are the most searched papers, what are the most searched keywords, for instance. And they are selling this kind of data, okay? They are data analytics providers. It's a danger, okay? I guess, and I hope you can see the danger here. It's not just about academic freedom, because you can imagine, what about the so-called long tail of science? If a funder getting data analytics decide just to fund mainstream science, the most searched keywords, or think about a country like Hungary, in which the Academy of Science was closed, a lot of universities were closed, researchers could be in danger if you can track their searches, if you can track what they are researching. But that is what commercial publishers are doing right now. They are tracking your behavior and they are selling this kind of data. You know that in the Silicon Valley, they used to say, if you don't pay, you are the product. In this case, we are the product because they are selling our data, and we are also paying a lot of money because Scopus is costing a lot of money, Scival is costing a lot of money. They track your behavior and then they sell the data. So it's a bit scaring. And if you want to listen to Claudio, here you have the Italian version. But if you search online, you can also find an English version. Reminder number 3, the business of publisher is to make money, so it's quite normal, but the business of academia is to advance knowledge. So as you can see here, there is a bit of, misalignment. And basically, my question is scholarly communication a market? Is something completely different, because unlike money, is something that you want to share. What did I say at the beginning? The slides are available for you. They have a Creative Commons license. You can reuse them. You can download them, provided that you cite me as the author. So it's something that I want to share. Okay, so scholarly communication basically is not a market. And in this situation, access is still an issue. As you can see in this survey, 95% of respondents had experience being unable to access a research article or data they needed due to paywalls. She's a researcher working in a small biotech lab, and every day she hit the so-called paywall. These are emails that I get almost on a daily basis. Students asking for the full text of a paper they found in our institutional repository without the open access version because it's closed behind a paywall. And as I was saying, this is a huge issue. Think about small and medium enterprises. Think about practitioners. Think about innovators. They have no money to subscribe to scientific journals. So basically they are excluded from the latest news and the latest update in research. If access would not be an issue, SciHub would not exist. I think you are familiar with SciHub because everyone is using SciHub, but SciHub is a pirate website. And listen to Bernard Rentier, who used to be the rector, now is a rector emeritus at the University of Liège. The single fact that providing free information on universal science is illegal tells us a lot about how absurd it has become in the internet era to rely on the old research publication model. And by the way, you have at least 12 different legal ways to get a PDF if you don't have a subscription. And the first of these options is unpaywall. Unpaywall, we will discuss it even next time. Unpaywall is an extension of Chrome and Firefox. It's a sort of web engine looking for the legally deposited open version of the paper you can find because it's behind a paywall. Other numbers, 9 to 18 months, 179, 70%, 43. 9 to 18 months is the average publication time. So we pay 10 billion euros per year in subscription, and what we get in change is an article which is published 18 months later. Look at this tweet from Paola Masuzzo. She's another of the open science advocates. Today, I witnessed the celebration of a research article published in a famous and glam journal after 2.5 years of revisions. I do feel happy for the authors, of course, but I cannot help wondering what's there to celebrate in such a slow scientific dissemination. Can you imagine it during the COVID pandemic? 2.5 years of revisions, it's really nonsense. 179% is another great number because it's the percentage of self-citation increase in Italy after the national research assessment was enacted in 2015. Okay, we became a case study because after it was created, this national research assessment exercise, there was, people gaming the system, and we will see that it's a huge issue in science today. 70% is scaring because is the percentage of non-reproducible researches in some fields. Okay, as you can see here, more than half of high-impact cancer lab studies could not be replicated. Okay, And this is scaring because if science is not reproducible, is it science? In my opinion, not. And by the way, if you want a good handbook on a reproducible data science, you can go for the Turing way. 43% is the most scaring number because it's the percentage of retractions for fraud. I don't know if you are familiar with retractions. It means that when a published article is retracted, and once it was just, because you find a mistake, we are all humans, so it's a mistake. Look at this graph, and as you can see here, you have the original source. Look at how the percentage of paper retracted by fraud increased. And by fraud, we mean data fabrication, data falsification, and so on. And if you have time, I invite you to go and have a look at Retraction Watch. Retraction Watch is a scientific blog tracking retractions. As you can see, they also have a leaderboard led by Yoshitaka Fuji with a total of 183 retractions. So it's not just one rotten apple. It seems that it's a sort of modus operandi in science, and we will discuss some other cases later. It's just to show you that it's not just one rotten apple. But Houston, we have a problem, which is the direct correlation among the number of retractions and the impact factor of the journal, meaning the highest the impact factor of the journal, the highest the number of retractions. So the impact factor, I'm sorry, is not a quality seal. On the contrary, is a sort of natural selection of bad science, because as you can see here, and if you want to go and read the papers, you will find all the data, prestigious science journals struggle to reach even average reliability. And why is it? Because if you as a researcher, you are asked to publish in the highest impact factor journal, you do everything, anything to publish in an impact factor journal. And when I say anything, I mean literally anything, including fabricating and falsifying data. So we have a huge issue here. What about peer review? Does it work? Not always. I mean, peer review, if it's done in a good way, in an effective way, it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Do you remember these two papers about hydroxychloroquine treatment for COVID-19? They were published in Lancet and in the New England Journal of Medicine, which are by long and large the highest impact factor journal in medicine. They were retracted after readers, not reviewers, because the two articles were published and they passed, they had undergone peer review and they were accepted, okay? They were retracted after readers expressed concern and the authors were not able to give the original data, okay? If you look at the retractions, just on papers on COVID-19, you have out of 137 retraction that 115 comes from peer-reviewed papers, okay? So not always peer review is a seal of quality. Look at this other example. This is, I don't remember the name, Early Human Development, a journal published by Elsevier and presented as an authoritative, highly cited voice on early human development. They had to retract 113 papers in this journal, not one paper, 113 papers, because this pediatric cardiologist published papers on surgery and pediatric issues in Star Trek. This is the authoritative, highly cited voice published by Elsevier. I can give you another example. Dietrich Stapel, he used to be the dean of social psychology faculty at the University of Tilburg in the Netherlands. He gained 48 retractions, and he was considered the expert with capital E on psychology at his time. He used to give data to PhDs and to ask PhDs to write the paper because he had no time. There was a PhD not convinced about the data, so he asked for raw data. Professor Stapel refused to give the data, so an investigation was open. And in the end, he had to admit that he had fabricated all the data on which all his papers published in the most prestigious journal, in the highest impact factor journal had been published. So he had to retract everything, and he was also sued by the European Commission, and he had to give back 2 million euros for a European project because, of course, if he didn't perform any of the experiment, he had to give back also the money. Another interesting case about retraction is Joachim Bolt. He was studying a specific molecule, I don't remember, hydroxyethyl starch. If you take the retracted paper out systematic reviews, you see that you have an increased risk of mortality and renal failure. So basically, retractions are not just about, academia, it's about our lives when it comes to medicine. This is another case about a cardiologist. This is a surgeon. And here you have another article, Springer Nature retracted more than 400 papers for fake reviews. And if you think about science, you have a snowball effect, because look at how many articles are citing retracted papers. But if you cite a retracted papers, and if the retracted papers have fake data in it, you see that you are building a tower with a, with the wrong foundation. Okay, so it's really scaring for science. And as you can see here, this is the editor of a medical journal saying that prestige is damaging science. The misplaced faith in prestigious journals peer review system is doing serious damage to science. And again, if you want to read the article, you have the link here. So what about impact factor? And then we are going to close this first session and having a break and having some question. What about the impact factor? You know that the impact factor is calculated as basically you divide the number of citation in an year X to article published in the 2 previous year by the total citable articles published in the 2 previous years. Look at this example. Again, you have the source here in the paper. If you look at journal citation reports, 22 edition and 23 edition, you will see that for the same journal, Current Biology, The number of items published in 2001 here was 528. In the 23 edition, the number was changed. So this is a fraud again. And the number of items published in 2001 resulted 300. So if I graduated in Italian literature, but I know that if I divide a number by 528 or by 300, the results will change, and the impact factor magically went from 7 to 11.9. What happened in 2002? Current biology was acquired by Elsevier. And magically, in the journal citation reports, the number changed. This is a fraud. We don't know. This was scooped. We don't know how many times it happened. It could be a good research for some statistician. Anyway, in any case, even without frauds, the impact factor is a bullshit statistic. Sorry for the word, it's not mine, it's John Tennant speaking, because it's imposed by a very small number of highly cited papers, because it's the medium, okay? It's the medium number. So for instance, we can both publish in the same journal. My article can get 0 citation, your article can get 100 citation, and we share the same impact factor of 50, which is nonsense, okay? So again, everyone using impact factor is statistically illiterate. So impact factor is not a good tool. What about citations? This is an interesting experiment carried out amongst chemistry researchers. They asked researchers, in your opinion, which is the most cited article? Which is the most significant one? Which is the article you would share, you are most willing to share? If you look at the colored bar are the actual answer of researchers. If you look at the gray bar, I think you can guess what they are. They are the corresponding citation in Scopus and Web of Science. There is no relation at all, because you cite a paper because the editor asks you to cite, you cite the paper because it's your friend who authored it, so it's really a game. But unfortunately, science is not a game, okay? And why is that? Because evaluation became an obsession. If you have time, please go and read the proceedings of this workshop held at the Royal Society of London in 2015, when all the researchers were talking about early career researchers. They said, not only we are failing to provide the right incentives, we are providing perverse ones. And they quote the Goodhart's law: when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure, because you do everything and basically people game the system at every level. If you are interested in these topics, you can refer to this book edited by Mario Biagioli and Alexandra Lippmann, Gaming the Metrics, Misconduct and Manipulation in Academic Research. And I would say you need time, because it's more than 300 pages. So again, it's not something that you do once, it's a sort of modus operandi in academia. If you have time, I really suggest you to read these causes for the persistence of the impact factor mania, because you will see all the critical aspects of impact factor and why it's used, because of course it's easy, it's a number, okay? So basically everyone is using it. If you have time, please read also about this performance-driven culture is ruining scientific research, because they tell you about this Cobra effect, telling this story when in India, the British were still ruling. there was a sort of outbreak. I don't know if you can say an outbreak of cobras, but anyway, there were snakes everywhere. So the British government started paying Indian people for every cobra they brought dead, okay? So what Indians did, they started breeding cobras. So they have cobras and they gain money for every cobra they brought. And this is the same with impact factor. If you have to publish in the highest impact factor journal, you basically do anything. And when I say anything, I mean anything to publish in the highest impact factor journal. So as you can see here, this paper was published on Nature. We need to talk about systemic fraud in science. We need to face this issue. All in all, evaluation is the key because evaluation affects the behavior of researchers, creating the so-called adaptive behavior. It promotes competition over collaboration. But if you think about science, science by nature is collaborative. Because if you think on why the journal, the academic journal were born to share. Because before journals, researchers used to write letters to their peers to share and to collaborate. This prestige system, as we said, it's the reason, the only reason why we are maintaining these high journal prices, okay? And it is spoiling even the open access principles with these absurd APCs costs. What is more important for open science is that these current criteria fail to recognize research outputs other than journal papers. So your focus is only on publishing journal papers, but in open science, you can share, and you should share, because we saw the lessons learned from COVID, you should share data, code, blogs, presentations, videos, basically anything, workflow, protocols, anything. And you should be rewarded if you share them. By the way, stay tuned, because in the second part of this morning, we have good news from the European Commission, because evaluation is changing. There is a huge process to reform evaluation, the evaluation criteria. So all in all, at the end of this first module, I think we should say, and we could say, that the system does not work the way it is. If you want to watch this video, it's a TED Talk given by Rachel Ainsworth. She's an astrophysicist and based in Manchester, and the title is "Research Culture is Broken and How Open Science Can Fix It." So basically in 15 minutes, Rachel, as a researcher, is telling you almost the same concept I try to convey. If you want to read also about what's wrong with the journal impact factor in 5 graphs, or if you want to read again the causes for the persistence of the impact factor mania, and listen again to Kostas Glinos, the former head of the Open Science Unit in Brussels. Today, we have a skewed perception of quality, reproducibility, and replicability, focus on excellence and on the scientific stars rather than on collaboration, publishing in a market where client is not the king, where you have close access. You are obsessed with rankings, not only journal rankings, but also university rankings. You have risk-averse research, because basically if you don't publish mainstream topics, you are not accepted. There is hyper-publishing, hyper-authorship. I would say, you know that nowadays some papers were retracted because authorship were sold and bought, okay? So you pay and your name is added just because you need one line more in your CV. Okay. There is a waste of resources. As we said, we are reinventing the wheel because we have no access to previous data or to previous researchers, and researchers are gaming the system, but also editors, also publishers. So the question asked by Kostas was, is this the culture we want? And this is the same question I ask you, is this the culture you want? Bearing in mind my initial question, which is why in the first place did you choose to do research, to become a researcher? So basically, here is Barend Mons talking. We will listen more to Barend in the data module. Researchers, funders, and publishers, I always thought that meant making things public, if you think at the etymology of publishing. They keep each other hostage in a deadly embrace by continuing to conduct, publish, and fund and judge science in the same way as in the past century. So far, no one seems to be able to break this deadlock. The accomplices, here is Bernard Rantier speaking, the rector emeritus of the University of Liège. The accomplices are you and me, researchers who pay to publish, who evaluate them, researchers who review the articles, researchers who pay to read, all being afflicted with prestige dependency syndrome. But if you think about the purpose of scholarly communication is to share insights for the benefit of humanity. Here is Lee Sigard speaking, a librarian, British librarian. If we have created a generation of scholars who are just in it for the glory of papers in glamorous journals and not to do good research that changes the world a little bit, then we are really in trouble. And I would say that the lessons that the COVID gave a great lesson about this issue. And maybe we should start, we should go back writing to express instead of writing to impress as we are doing now. So in this scenario, open science might help. And now we are taking a break because I guess you are fed up with my talking. And how can I stop sharing the slides? Maybe like this. Wow, I got it. Okay. So is there any question in the chat? Let me see and let me read. Okay, Gabriela, thank you because you put the link to the slide in Zenodo. Okay. So is there any question? I see no question in the chat. Top. Thank you, Mihai. Thank you. So
May I have intervention or like this directly?
Yes,
or?
yes, of course.
First of all, thank you very much for your great presentation. You are a courageous person.
Thank you.
What I would like to say is that I'm pretty interested in this topic because I'm editor of a journal. And one of the issues in this moment, from my perspective, is that we are in a situation that publisher are supplier. It's time to switch this stuff and to transform the author as suppliers. In fact, there is not competition. You are forced to attend, to send for only one journal, to attend, to wait 1 year, 2 years to offer them to a review, and that's all. No, it's about competition. I can submit to N journals. If I will do that, the journal we will have this stimulus to fast the review, and you know what I mean. I think this is the future, and it's quite an easy way to fix all the issue in the market. But you know, we discuss about the big companies. It's the business. And and the second point, and I'm finished. I think in 2015, you know that the former E.C. Thompson clarified what transferred to a British fund, but in reality, it's not a British fund. It's a Chinese. They're the Chinese money,
Yeah.
and everything transformed from that moment during the actual clarified analytics happen very, very bad things. Just
Yeah.
I'm economist. Just look on the editorial board of Elsevier on Springer. There are many, many Chinese come there
Yeah.
and they monopolize everything. It's
Yeah.
amazing. They're the
Yeah.
millions.
Yeah,
And
but you
quality fall, completely fall.
yeah,
Thank
and I would say as a publisher, because some of the open access journals that we publish at the University of Turin, they ask to be indexed in the Web of Science, in the new Web of Science.
I'm in
And
Romania.
I would say that there is no transparency at all. You have no tracking system. So basically you apply and then there is a black hole. You don't know what's happening. So they are really no serious, no longer serious. But all in all, I would say they never were serious. It just changed the kind of, not transparent workflow. But anyway, what you were saying is very important about the suppliers. Because if you think of it, at least in Italy, if I have to buy, a mug for my tea at the university, or if I have to buy a pen, I have to go for public procurement. And I have to accept, the lowest price. Why in publishing we are paying this insane amount of money? And we have been paying an insane amount of money without asking a bit, without even be sure of a service, because we are paying for the final product. We are not asking for a specific survey. Basically, we are paying for a PDF online, which in 2023 is nonsense. So we should ask for specific services, and we should pay just for the services, not for the prestige. So if Nature is providing the same service of the Turin journal of, dust cleaning, we should pay the same, okay? So you touched upon a good point, but you are an economist, so that's why.
By the way, the experience in respect to evaluation to former Web of Science, I'm waiting 7 years.
Yeah.
And after 7 years, the new Clarivate Analytics explained me that I have to change the procedure and to start again.
Yeah, I know. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, thank you. Thank you for commenting. Yeah, of course. Maybe I forgot to tell you at the beginning, but today it's supposed to be a conversation. So during this break, feel free to interact and it was also the purpose of the initial Menti, just to test what are your expectations about the course, what are your awareness of this. And I have to say, you surprised me, because actually when I say, what is scholarly communication? Usually the answer is journal articles, papers, conference proceedings. So you are not you are not ground zero. You are already, a bit intermediate, because you said communication, you said sharing. So great.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and thank you very much. Thanks. Great.
Any other comment or question? Because, I give a lot of training, and sometimes after this first module, there are like shocked reactions. Like, you said, or even disturbed reactions. Like you said, so you saved nothing. You basically destroyed all our beliefs, but
True. A lot more than.
yeah. So anyway, if you have anything you want to say, or maybe you have an experience to share with us about impact factor, or about fraud, or about retractions or something like this.
And in my case, or generally speak?
In general,
Yes, for
anyone.
example, too, they're very. This is my experience. 1 year ago, no, 2 years ago, I sent a paper to the journal in the Elsevier, and they make jokes saying that this is a, by the way, it's a bullshit of paper, and I published the paper 1 year after, and I saw in the previous journal I submit that publish another paper with the same topic with my theoretical model. You understand what I mean? And they published that paper. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, I see.
Or, for example, I work in the revision on a paper now, and the reviewer destroy my paper and invoke another paper. Okay, because that paper say like, I check to see what they say. That paper invoke another paper, but in that paper is completely different stuff. It's like you say something in affirmation.
It's a game.
Not
It's
true.
a game.
It's
a
not
game.
true.
Yeah.
They inventing something, taking,
I know.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And we are paying 10 billion for this.
Yes.
And what's worst, in my opinion, is that you are evaluated on this. So your career depends.
Yes, that's for sure.
On this game, but
Yeah,
it's a game.
Yeah, it's not only. I'm pretty sure that also in Italy it's the same stuff. I know from my best friend. I have a quarter in Roma 3. I speak also Italian, parlo un po'.
Yeah.
And yes,
Yeah.
and I know very well
The situation. Yeah.
Italian system. And also in Romania, in France, because I have my habilitation in France, the same.
Yeah, it's the same.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so now we are having a break. If you have anyone has other comments, I would say 10 minutes, or you need more. 10 minutes is enough. Okay, so we are back at 11:35. See you soon. So welcome back. I hope you are there, but of course I have no way to check. Anyway, I try to share again the screen. Can you see the slides again?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Okay. Is there anyone who wants to comment? Maybe during the break you share other comments with your colleagues, or you have some doubt or something you want to share? If not, we can start again. We have 1 hour and a half because we have until 1 o'clock. So I'll try to be brief on the presentation again to give maybe more time for the discussion. Anyway, so let's go open science. Today we are going to see the idea of open science, the theory, okay? And basically, we are going to see that another world is possible for research and for science, with a focus on research assessment. As I told you at the beginning, there is something very important going on at European level. Next time, so on Monday 27, we will see the practice, meaning tools, practical tools, to make it too easy not to do, as we were saying at the beginning, with a focus on open access. Okay, so we will see open access in a more, let's say, a more specific way, because it's still an issue. It's still, I would say, more unknown than open science in itself, or misunderstood, or misinterpreted, or whatever. But anyway, to discuss open science, we need a bit of inspiration. The best thing about internet is that it's open. In every field, it lets us share and innovate. In science, openness is essential. Open science doesn't mean ignoring economic reality. Of course, we need business models to be sustainable, but that doesn't mean we have to carry on doing things the way they have always been done. So wherever you sit in the value chain, whether you are a researcher or an investor, a policymaker, my message is clear. Let's invest in collaborative tools that let us progress. Let's tear down the walls that keep learning sealed off, and let's make science open. She was Neelie Kroes speaking in 2012. She used to be the vice president of the European Commission, and it's a sort of tribute to this Dutch politician, because the open agenda of the European Commission was set basically by her. So she had a vision, she had really a vision of this openness in science, which is really crucial. Here you go with the first definition of open science coming from Kios. Kios is a preprint server, which I recommend if you want to publish your preprints. But anyway, open science stands for the transition to a new, more open and participatory way of conducting, publishing, and evaluating scholarly research. I would say that the three terms, each one of the three terms, it's important, because if you do science in another way, but you publish in the same way as the past century, and if you are evaluated according to the same criteria of 50 years ago, there will be a misalignment. So it's a new way of conducting, publishing, and evaluating research. Central to this concept is the goal of increasing cooperation and transparency in all research stages. This is achieved, among other ways, by sharing research data, publications, tools, and results as early and open as possible. This principle of as early and open as possible is crucial. Because in the definition, you see, we don't say always. And we don't say immediately. We say as early and open as possible. So if you have some reasons to keep your data or your workflow close, you can keep it close. You must keep it close in some cases, and we will see talking about fair and open data. But the principle should be as open as possible, as early as possible. Okay, and it's a sort of shifting in your mindset, because nowadays everything is closed and only some brave open the data, the workflow, the publication, and so on. It should be the reverse. So everything should be shared as early and open as possible. And why so? Because open science leads to a more robust scientific results, to more efficient research and faster access to scientific results for everyone. This results in turn in greater societal and economic impact. So as you can see here, the first benefit is for science in itself, because open science leads to more robust scientific results, because everything is transparent. You can't cheat, you can't fabricate data, you can't falsify data if everything is transparent. To more efficient research, because everything should be reusable. So if you find a workflow, if you find a protocol that you can reuse, if you find data that you can reuse, you won't waste money and time in redoing it, okay? And in access to scientific results for everyone. And of course, what is important is the societal impact. I would say not only impact, but also this idea of being responsive to societal need and to engage society, as we will see in a while. So this is the real purpose. Open science, as we were saying at the beginning, is not a target, it's not the purpose, it's not a target per se. It's a tool, it's a way, it's a mean to get a better science, okay? More responsive to societal needs. That's the real purpose of open science. And then at the beginning of this year, we had another definition, another great definition coming from the Biden-Harris administration, because European Commission is pushing strong for open science, but during the last 3 or 4 months, even in the United States, there is a strong push towards open science. So as you can see here in this fact sheet of the Biden-Harris administration, open science is defined as the principle and practice, which is important. Today we are going to see the principles. Next time we are going to see the practice of making research products and processes. And again, this is important. It's not only the final product, it's the entire workflow which should be available to all, while respecting diverse cultures, maintaining security and privacy, and fostering collaboration, reproducibility, and equity. As you can see here, it's another way to say as open as possible. Because if you have security issue, if you have privacy issue, you can't open your data, you can't open your research. But as you can see here, you have, again, the idea of fostering collaboration, of having a more efficient and effective research workflow, and a science that must be reproducible. We saw in the first part, then in some cases, 70% of the published papers are not reproducible, which is not science, okay? As you can see here, and as where we discuss in the previous slide, the real purpose is to drive progress, okay? So again, open science is not the target. Open science is a mean, is a way to drive progress, to have a more effective science. And bear in mind the lessons we learned from COVID that we saw in the first part. But Houston, we have a problem again. You will see this slide, unfortunately, a lot time and again. We have diffused misconceptions about open science. normally open science is equated to open access. And when you think about open access, you think about you always pay to publish. You think to open access as predatory publishers, or when you think about open science from the perspective of your data, you think that you can't open your data because your data are sensitive, because and so on and so forth. So here you have a lot of misconception about open science. There are something that you can do, which is to read this preprint about 10 myths around open scholarly publishing, or to go for this open science calendar, the advent of open science. It was created in December 2021 by Jeroen, which is the League of Young European Research Universities. Basically, you get rid of a myth on open science day by day, okay? And it's easy, it's quick. So I really suggest you to go for this open science calendar. About this information, you have a new entry, as you can see here, the title of this paper, Making Science More Open is Good for Research, but Bad for Security. It seems from the title that making science in every discipline, if you go and read the paper, is just about synthetic biology, and it's just about the dual use, okay? So as Jean-Claude Guédon was tweeting, it would have been useful to restrict the reach of the title to biosecurity issues and to particular sectors of life sciences. Otherwise, we are dealing with journalistic hype. But it does not good, okay? Open science is mostly unknown to researchers, is not on the political agenda in many universities, is not on the communication agenda. I'm sorry to say it, but today in this lesson, we are attending this lesson in 16 from 6 or 7 universities, which is really, I would say, disappointing, because it's a missed opportunity to know about open science. Luckily, we are recording this lesson, so it will be available even in the future. If we want another definition, we have to refer to the UNESCO recommendation on open science, which was approved unanimously in November 2021. And as you can see here in this 3 helix infographic, open science increases scientific collaboration and sharing of information for the benefit of science and society, makes multilingual scientific knowledge openly available, accessible and reusable for everyone, and I will stress this multilingual issue later, opens the processes of scientific knowledge creation, evaluation and communication to societal actors beyond the traditional scientific community. This is a very important point. This is, I would say, the pillar of the UNESCO recommendation on open science, and we are going to see more in a few moments. What I would stress in this slide is the idea of collaboration and sharing, the idea of English not being the only language to make science, to do science, and this idea of a two-way communication, a two-way dialogue. So is not, in the previous definition, we said open science available to all. So it's still something that you give, okay? In this UNESCO recommendation and in some comments that we will see in a moment, the idea is to engage even outside academia in co-creating science, and this is very important. If you want to know open science in 3 minutes, please go and watch this video from UNESCO, because you will see also the benefit of open science. Another definition, open science is endeavoring to preserve the rights of others to reach independent conclusions about your data and work. Another good definition of scholarly communication is a great conversation. So like every conversation, we can also disagree. okay? If you think about scholarly communication as we see it nowadays, it's impossible to disagree, okay? You don't have negative results. You have just, in most cases, you have just mainstream research, okay? And it's difficult to comment, it's difficult to debate. But if you think, as we were saying, if you think about the reason why academic journals were born, was to debate, to enable this conversation, okay? So this is a good definition of open science. Preserve the right of ours to reach independent conclusions about your data and work. And if you want to watch, again, it's 3 minutes video. This is a neuroscience laboratory in Canada. They decided they will never patent anything. And they decided to put all the data, perfectly anonymized, perfectly fair, on the web every night about the patients, because their goal is to find a treatment, not to publish, is to find a treatment. And so they say, if we put the data on the web, maybe there is a researcher or a scientist out there, or even a citizen coming with a bright idea to treat our disease. Another important point here, being open and transparent is an ongoing practice and not a checkbox at the end. As we were saying at the beginning, I hope during this morning and next time, open science has the potential of transforming science, because it's a different way of doing science. It's not an administrative burden, it's not just a check you have to do, it's not, you know, for Italian researchers, it's not like, you know, all this administrative service that we have to do for this national agency. Is an ongoing practice, is basically another way of doing science. And if you want to get open science, of course, you need open outputs, you need an open infrastructure, but as you can see here, the factor is the cultural change. So if the cultural change is 0, you will never get open science. The results will be 0. And by cultural change, we mean evaluation criteria and researchers' behavior. And here I would say another quote by Neelie Kroes: open science depends on open minds. And I would say, at least in Italy, in my country, this is still an issue. This idea of the cultural change being the factor, so if the cultural change is 0, the change will never happen, it's very important, but don't use it as an excuse. I mean, don't wait for the rules to change. And I have a practical example here. At the end of August 2021, in Australia, the Australian Research Council published the new criteria for grant application. And in your CV, in the list of publication, they excluded the use of preprints because they are not peer reviewed, because, and so on and so forth. They are not quality papers and so on and so forth. There was a sort of, you know, revolution on social media, because researchers were, and rightly so, they were claiming that preprints publish the most updated science. They are cutting edge science. They are really the most updated to the night before. So if they can't include in their research grant application, they can't be negatively evaluated because they are not up to date, okay, on the latest development on their field, on the status of the art of their field. So there was really a sort of revolution from researchers, because during the pandemic, the preprints, and we will see the use of preprints next time, became really the way of communicating science. So there was this sort of revolution, and after 15 days, the Australian Research Council changed their mind, and now they accept the preprint in the grant application, okay? Recognizing that nowadays the scientific community is widely using preprints as a way of communicating science. So again, cultural change is needed, but you create the change with your behavior. Don't wait for the rules to change. If we are waiting for the rules to change, maybe my grandchildren will see open science, okay? So we need to act now, change our behavior, and then maybe the rules will follow. And we will see it's happening with research assessment criteria. In this infographic, coming again from the UNESCO recommendation on open science, you see that open scientific knowledge, so what we were talking until now, publications, data, software, coding, protocols, workflow, anything, is just one of the components. Because as you can see, we have open infrastructure, we have the engagement of societal actors, and we have the dialogue with other knowledge systems. And please notice that they are always referring to knowledge and not to science, okay? Knowledge, and that's why I really appreciate in your initial Menti that you put it's common, it's open knowledge, okay? And not science. So thank you again for sharing your comments with us. So basically, the UNESCO recommendation is telling us it's not just about academia, it's about the entire knowledge system. And if you have time, please go and read. It's a very short paper by Pierre Mounier, the coordinator of the Opera's infrastructure, connecting the building blocks of open science and ecological approach, because it's really a great paper. Because scientific knowledge is just one of the knowledge produced by humans. And when in the UNESCO recommendation, when we see dialogue, it means a two-way communication. And that's why the definition I showed you before, they are not complete. They are not complete because it's just access to something produced within academia, is just sharing from academia to outside. It's not a real dialogue. It's not a real two-way of communicating. So that's important to bear in mind. If you look at this other infographic, you will see that in open science we have benefits, we have principles, we have tools. So what we are going to see in this module this morning are mostly the principles and the benefits, and next time we are going to see the tools. But as you can see here, if the benefit is that if knowledge is available, you will see science, technology, innovation as a common good, okay? And so, again, it's not just about publishing, it's about sharing knowledge, co-creating knowledge for the benefits of humankind. Please bear in mind my initial question. Why did you choose to be a researcher? Why do you do research? In this infographic, it's important because you see, we can notice many things in this infographic, but you see all the components of open science. Open access, open infrastructure, open educational resources, open labs, open data, and we should say fair open data, open notebook, open innovation, citizen science, open evaluation, and so on. And why is this infographic important? Because we clearly see that open access does not equate to open science. Open access is just one of the components of open science, among others. So that's the first point. The second point is that you can see that the focus of open science is not just on the final output, is not just on the publication, is about the entire process of research, is about the entire workflow. And if you are based in Europe, and if you are going to apply for an Horizon Europe grant, is all the more so important because all these components are to be embedded in the proposal template, okay? And you will be evaluated on how you adapt open science practices to your proposal, okay? It will be in the excellence section of your proposal, section 1.2, and I invite you to our final lesson on March 27. We will have a specific lesson on Horizon Europe. So we had some definition. We saw the approach, the different approach of the UNESCO recommendation, and now we are going to see some but, okay? Here again is Barenmons talking. Bear in mind that it's not just putting open before everything, okay? Open access, open peer review, open data, that we are done. Because basically what we are doing is to put new wine in old wineskins, which is the current journal system, the current evaluation system. So one day or the other, the system is going to explode, okay? So don't think that you publish open, spending $11,000 for an APC in Nature, you are on the safe side. Don't think that if you put your data and you think I'm putting open data and you put an Excel file online, you are done, okay? Or if you think that you are doing citizen science, simply asking citizens to take a photo of a migrating bird, okay? It's not just putting open that we are safe. It's a system that has to change. There is another but coming again from the Pierre Mounier paper. I just suggested you a few slides before this one. Connecting the building blocks of open science is much more than just creating connection. Is much more than ensuring technical interoperability. It is to create a milieu of knowledge, to build the community that supports it and to open it beyond the limits of academia. In other words, it is to consider that the sum is superior to the addition of its part and to adopt an encompassing approach that supports open knowledge as a whole. The main consequence of it would be to focus primarily not on the blocks taken individually and not even primarily on the individual interaction between them, but on the system of interaction that structure open science. So the objective is no longer to connect building blocks of open science as bricks are assembled in a wall, but to support symbiotic system of relations between initiatives, platforms, tools, communities, and practice that strive for and by open knowledge, which means to flip the order of priorities and to pay attention first to the way they move in the ecosystem. How do they nurture from it? How do they fertilize it? How do they cooperate with others? Rather than on other criteria that are usually considered as more important, such as innovation, efficiency, excellence. By the way, I hate the word excellence. And then we have to have a comprehensive representation of the full web of interaction and interdependencies. And so we can start asking the right question. Is this system sustainable? Is it inclusive? And we will discuss a lot about inclusion. Is it creative? Is it alive? That's the question. That's the real question. Okay. So if you have 5 minutes, please go and read this paper because it's really interesting. And it's also appealing because you see, Pierre tried to give a representation of the open science ecosystem with a waterfall of fundings, a forest of publication, hills of policies. It's not casual again, the ocean of platforms and tools, the meadows of data, the lake of projects, okay? So it's really an ecosystem, and it's important to see how the different, for instance, infrastructures and projects interact among them. But still, our focus, even in the definition we saw before, it's on a one-way communication. This is a presentation by Kathleen Shearer. We will see more discussing about the repositories next time. Last week at the third Open Science Conference at the United Nations, what we have and what we need, and of course I agree 100% because it's the same that we saw during the first module. What we have now, a system which does not work anymore, and what we need. But again, you see here, the focus is on dissemination. So something creating inside the academia to be disseminated to others, okay? Which is no longer the right approach in my opinion. The same was said at the JUSC Symposium in Prague by Laurent Sesnik from SURF, so a Dutch funding agency. The focus should be on before and during. So our focus in open science should be on creating knowledge instead of after. So instead of disseminating the knowledge that we have created. This is I would say, the take-home message of this second session, in my opinion, would be this one. So we should focus on the activities before and during a research project. So we should focus on creating knowledge instead of disseminating knowledge. And we should refer maybe to scholarly conversation instead of communication. Again, to avoid this one-way perspective, okay? Which brings us also to the so-called version of record. So something static, something that once published is no longer live, basically. So it's a more, dynamic way of seeing scholarly conversation as a great conversation, okay? As a dialogue, a two-way dialogue. There is another but. First of all, it's not open or not, okay? It's a gradient, as we said, as open as possible, to share as early as possible, okay? And another caveat is that it's not true that open is good by default, okay? So here is an important but. There is another but. It's true that open is not good by default, but if you think of it, to have good science, you need to have data, you need to be transparent on your method, you need to be reproducible. So here is the link, okay, among open science and good science, because you need basically, if you do open science in a correct way, you are doing also good science, because you are sharing all the methods, you are sharing the protocols, you are sharing the data, you are sharing the workflow, the coding, you are sharing everything. And you have to do it in a right way, okay? So you have to do it right. If you have time, there is this interesting preprint authored from, among others, by Paola Masuzzo, Open Science Save Lives, Lessons from the COVID-19 Pandemic, in which the authors show if you just publish a preprint, but you don't give access to the data, it's not good science, okay? So even open science has to be done right. If you just publish a preprint, but you don't give access to the data or to the code or to the workflow, you are behaving precisely like 20 years ago, or like we are doing now in subscription journals. So it's not the right way. And I would stress it again and again. The principle behind open science and the principle behind all the policies, the European policies in open science, is as open as possible, as close as necessary. Here is Carlos Moedas speaking, the former commissioner for research and innovation in the previous commission. This is the same principle you have to sign in the grant agreement if you are funded in Horizon Europe, okay? As open as possible, as close as necessary. But again, as I was saying, is a mind shift, okay? Because at the moment, everything is closed and only some brave researcher open. From now on, and in Horizon Europe, that is true because you signed a grant agreement to that, everything must be open. You can keep it closed only when and if you have some valid reason to keep it closed, okay? It's exactly the contrary of what we are doing now. So basically everything should be open by default and you have to keep closed only if you have valid reasons, okay? At the moment, we have research assessment criteria that do not help open science, okay? So here is Thomas Husi, a young researcher from, he is Finnish but working in Austria. Open science needs no martyrs, okay? So publish as open as you can. Basically, we will see that you can open up every step of your research, even with the current research criteria, okay? You can do it, but Thomas is saying we need no martyrs. So if you need to publish in the highest impact factor journal, let's publish in the highest impact factor journal, but then you can open your research depositing the accepted version, okay? So you can find your way to open science. You don't have to be a Taliban in open science, and all the more so, the important message here is you will not harm your career if you go open, okay? Even with the current research system, and we will see it next time talking about the practical tools. Something about open science pillars, as you can see here, the values, quality and integrity, the collective benefits, equity and fairness, the diversity and inclusiveness, and the principles of open science. Transparency, scrutiny, reproducibility, equality of opportunity, accountability, collaboration, participation, inclusion, flexibility, sustainability. What's the difference between open science and good science? If research papers are inaccessible, with no code or data, cherry-pick the results, inability to even attempt to reproduce, is that really even science? Science without openness is more anecdote and faith than science. This is John Tennant speaking, and this is this is an infographic, a good stick that I have on my laptop. Open science is just science done right. So this was the message that John conveyed during his entire life. So open science is just science done right. Again, John speaking. It was one of his slides. An academic talking to a non-academic. This research paper has been published and therefore is scientifically valid. but it's paywalled. I can't access it. How do I know it's valid? Because it has been peer reviewed. Can you show me the peer reviews? No, but it was done by 2 experts in the field. Which expert? We don't know because it's blind, of course, but it's in a top journal. And why is it in a top journal? Because it has a high impact factor, so it is highly cited. And why does that make the research better? Trust me, I'm a scientist. You know that trust and science should never be in the same sentence. Okay, this is my comment to this slide. Okay, and that brings us to research integrity and open science. If you are transparent, if you make available every step of your research, the data, the workflow, the coding, the protocols, everything, your research integrity will gain. Okay. Of course, the common keyword between research integrity and open science is transparency. Okay. As you can see here, you have some guidelines on research integrity and open science. If you go for a responsible conduct of research, you will see that open science is always involved because you have open data, open methodology, open lab notebooks, open peer review, open publishing, and open science tool. So there is a strong link between research, transparency, integrity, and open science. And if you think of it, how can you judge about research integrity if you just have if you just judge a researcher from the final output, from the paper? Okay, you don't know what's in between the initial hypothesis and the final output. That's why you should evaluate the entire research process. And here you see an issue because there is a sort of misalignment among the indicators used for research careers and the indicators needed to advance research, which would be collaboration, sharing, and so on and so forth. And by the way, you have this article showing you 5 selfish reasons to work reproducibly, okay? And if you have doubt about reproducibility, as you can see here from the initial hypothesis, then a miracle occurred, and the reviewer asked, should you be more explicit in step 2? So if you have doubt about reproducibility, please refer to this paper, which is really important. And this is another paper about this idea of how open science can help reproducible science. So you have 5 points on reproducible science. Benefits of open science. As you can see, again, coming from the UNESCO recommendation, open science is an accelerator to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Open science can be a game changer because it has the potential of increasing the quality and making the entire process of science more transparent. So again, the first benefit is for science in itself, okay? Because if you have a transparent process, you have a better research integrity, you are reproducible, or we were saying before. Never forget, please, that open science is a human right. If you go to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 27, everyone has the right to participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancement and its benefits. And if you go to the preamble of the UNESCO recommendation, the commitment of UNESCO is to leave no one behind with regard to access to science, not only to access, but in this vision of an open dialogue with other communities, with other cultural and knowledge systems. And this brings us to the idea of open and collaborative science, because we need to be inclusive. As you see, Paola Masuzzo here, equity, diversity, inclusiveness are non-negotiable. We are in 2023. By diversity, we mean also multilingualism. So English is not the only way to create knowledge. And all the more so if you go for citizen science, if you go for co-creation, it's important to respect the national languages. But look at this infographic from Dasapta. Dasapta is a researcher from Indonesia, and we will see some sketch from Dasapta later. If you search in Scopus for this Mahakam, which is an Indonesian word, you would find only 170 documents. In Lens, you would find 1,000, and in Crossref, you would find 7,000. So you see, Scopus is supposed or is seen from researcher as the most comprehensive database to search for scientific research. Is not true, because you would find only 170 papers written in Indonesian. Diversity even in team, in researcher team, is an asset. Here is Stephen Curry. We will see Stephen later talking about research assessment. Important message to bring to university leadership is that we miss out on talent by not making equality and diversity a priority. Mixed teams work better. Addressing diversity issues is a win-win situation for students, staff, and institutions, okay? So this is really another important message. And when I say diversity, being a woman, I would say also we have a gender issue here. These are data from Italy, from our Ministry of Research. As you can see, we have 59% of female students, so women as students are 56, not 59. When you come to full professors, you have only 23 women and 77 male professor, full professor, okay? Bringing this on a more global vision, here is Hamed Ungulaya from Open Access Nigeria speaking at the Open Science Fair back in 2017. If we are not careful, we will have an open science that perpetuates the inequalities in academia and science. And if you think about equity, diversity, and inclusion, please refer to this wonderful talk given by Piv Gopalasingam at the Open Library, at the Open Life Sciences. The question you have to address is who is in the room, who is trying to get in the room but can't, and have everyone's ideas been heard? These are three important questions. I would say that it's also important to be open and not patronizing, okay? This is a presentation again at the Open Science Conference last week in New York by Ariana Becerril Garcia. Which regions are excluded? Who owns and controls the knowledge? How to achieve systemic participation in science without being patronizing? For instance, and we will see this presentation talking about transformative agreements next time. If we are waiving APCs in open access, we are patronizing, okay? We are not really inclusive. And as you can see here, this map is the map of citations. And as you can see here, is not the territory, because this is South America, this is Latin America, according to citations, and this is the global north. So the global north accounts for 94.7% of citations, okay, which is not really inclusive. I would say the champion of open and inclusive science is Leslie Chan. If you are interested in these topics, please refer to Leslie's presentation. You have two here. One is this one about why are the rich in open science getting richer. So it's a reflection on structural inequalities and knowledge production. Because again, if we don't, like the message Hamedou Ngulaya was saying, if we don't think critically about openness, if we are not really inclusive, the risk is to reproduce and amplifying existing inequalities in the scholarly communication system. Open science should be for a better world. As you can see in this open science, the very idea, this infographic from the University of Utrecht. Paola Masuzzo gave a wonderful keynote speech at the Open Science Fair in 2019. We are now in this, I would say, asphyctic environment in which we are obsessed by ranking, citation, numbers. There is this egoism, the quest for visibility, shiny and sexy results, no negative results, honorary authorship, irreproducible research. We should shift to open and inclusive science. We should breathe fresh air and make our brain alive again. So we should go for a fair academic assessment, recognition of mentoring, diversity and inclusion, support for mental health, which is really an issue for early career researchers. We should collaborate, share openly, sharing. We should promote diversity and participation, and we should go for reproducible, transparent, and responsible research. Again, this is a sort of manifesto coming from Paola. The aim is not open science per se. I keep saying now and again, the aim is to put science back at the heart of society. And in doing so, we have to recognize that research papers, journal articles are not the only research output, okay? They are not the only unit of scientific knowledge. We have to consider data, code, protocols, basically everything from your initial hypothesis to the final output. We need to redefine the concept of excellence by values, okay? The real excellent researcher is a researcher with a good leadership skill, inclusive, with a diverse teamwork, which support mental health. We have to invest in community-led infrastructures. We need to take back control, even on scholarly publications. We need to engage people. And the most important message in this manifesto is we need to tell it like it is. Science fails. Take back your right to be wrong. Redefine the concept of failure. If you know the motto, provando e riprovando. So basically you try and retry, okay? So negative results are of the same, if not more important than these hype results that we find in mainstream journal papers, okay? And if you have to tell it like it is, you need to shift from the final output to the process, okay? So we need to consider the entire practice of open science, which will be the topic of our next meeting, okay? The focus should be on the entire process, and I was saying, not only on positive findings. This is very important, both in open access and in open science. In a nutshell, just to recap this theory about open science, and then we will go for the final part on research assessment. This is an email a PhD student from the University of Verona sent me after the course. So Petra was saying after attending the course on open science, it was really helpful to have in mind there is an alternative way that gives us the chance of being treated with dignity and truly focus on the essence of our work. So in my opinion, this is the best definition of open science, a way to be treated with dignity and truly focus on the essence of our work. Please bear in mind my initial question, why do you do research? Why did you choose in the first place to be a researcher? Okay, so now we have a quick overview on research, on open science and how research assessment is changing. Something important if you want to start your transition to open science is to bear in mind that it's a process. And for every process and every change to succeed, you need a vision, skills, incentives, resources, and an action plan. If you lack a vision, you will generate confusion. If you lack skills, you will generate anxiety. If you lack incentives, you will generate resistance. If you lack resources, you will generate frustration. If you lack an action plan, you will generate false starts. I would say that at the University of Turin, we had all of them when we enacted our open access policy back in 2013, because then the governance never supported again the policy, so we generated confusion because we didn't have the right infrastructure in place. So it's really important if you plan to have a roadmap, and here you have some tools helping you. It's important to address all these aspects. You also have another tool which can help, which is this report from the Open Science Policy Platform led by Eva Mendes. You need to go from recommendation to practical commitment for implementation. And the practical commitment for implementation are what we are going to see next time. So basically next time I will ask you, what is the first step that you can take in order to open up your research tomorrow, okay? Or better today, okay? Not in 1 year. So practical commitment for implementation can be at every level, institutional or personal, or like, you know, for instance, a scientific society or an editorial board or basically whatever. What do you need to make open science the new normal? Here you see the second Dutch national plan for open science, because, you know, in the Netherlands, they are already at the second national plan for open science. You need to make it possible through open infrastructure. You need to make it easy through support and training. You need to make it normative through academic engagement, community engagement. You need to make it rewarding through incentives, so the research assessment reform, which we are discussing in a while, and you need to make it compulsory through policies and regulation, okay? So basically this could be a roadmap even in our institutions. What you need are policies. As you can see here, several countries in Europe as a national plan. I would say also Italy as a national plan, but it's an Italian one because we drafted it in 2019, and then it was published last year in 2022. with a cut and paste. So I was one of the authors and I don't recognize it. So with a lot of cut and paste without asking the original authors, and basically with no funds. Okay, so how can you go for a national plan for open science without funds and without any kind of political support? Okay, so even in Italy, we have a national plan, but unfortunately is not so feasible or not so helpful or useful. This is the French one. The second one, again, even in France, they have the second national plan. And it's important because they are addressing research evaluation and they are addressing also coding, also software. So they included open software within the national plan of open science, not only data, not only publications. This is the Dutch vision for open science, the second national plan. As you can see here, it's important because they see fair data, they see open access to publication, and they included citizen science. And for open science, they see 6 points, 6, let's say, targets for 2030. And they are acting upon this, okay? Look at this, for instance, distinction between data and publication is fluid. This is very important. Transparent, diverse, and disciplinary scientific knowledge sharing. Strong link with societal challenges and sustainable development goals. Protected sharing according to the FAIR principle with enriched metadata, okay? So I think that if our institutions are going seriously to start a path toward openness, these could be our vision too, our main points too. Actually, the process toward open science is going not only in Europe. As you can see, we have already talked about UNESCO, but also the OECD, the Organization for Economic Development is going for open science, the World Health Organization, CERN in Geneva, the International Science Council, and the Biden-Harris administration, so the White House, in August issued this guidance to make federally funded research freely available without delay. They proclaim 2023 the year of open science, and here you can find the new platform for open science and the conference we already referred to. So they are pushing strongly towards open science because of the benefits, of course, because open science will benefit science, societies, and everything. We are going next time to go through this open science rainbow. So the message here is just that technically it's there. So you have a lot of tools to open up every step of your research workflow. And you can do it right now. I mean, even though you are evaluated via impact factor, H index, and so on and so forth, you can do it because what the current research assessment is asking you is to publish in high impact factor journal. They don't prevent you to self-archive the accepted version in your institutional repository. They don't prevent you to deposit your data in a repository. They don't prevent you to share your code. They don't prevent you to share your notebook. They don't prevent you to pre-register your experiment. They don't prevent you to go for open peer review, for instance, okay? So basically you can do it right now, okay? When I say this sentence, usually the reaction from researchers is yes, but we are still evaluated by impact factor. That's no longer true. The world is changing, Okay, in Italy, we have this national agency, which is like still in the prehistory of research evaluation, but they signed what we are going to say. Out there, it's changing. This is a report published in 2017 by the European Commission, asking for a matrix and not a matrix. As you can see, you have to consider 6 elements, only one of them being research output intended not only as publication, but also data workflow and so on. And you have to give a different weight according to your status. So if you are an early career researcher or a full professor. So we add this matrix. We have the DORA declaration with some case studies. We have this initiative in the Netherlands, Room for Everyone's Talent. We have the Scope initiative in the UK, which is really interesting. We have the Finnish initiative to realize a fairer assessment. We have this handbook on research assessment in the social sciences. We have U-metrics, again, for a framework of values in the humanities and social sciences. The Dutch universities abandoned impact factor back in 2021. ERC abandoned impact factor in the new for the new projects. And if you are funded in Horizon Europe, and even in the proposal stage, as we will see on March 27, your publication will not be evaluated by the impact factor, okay? So the world is changing, and what is more important is that last year, the European Commission launched this process towards an agreement on reforming research assessment, okay? The agreement was launched by a coalition, which is called COERA, Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment. We have now, at the moment, I think we have 400 signatories in Europe. The University of Turin is among the signatories. I don't know, you can go on the website, on the COARA website, and check if your university already signed. If not, please consider to sign, because as you can see, Maria Gabriel, our Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth, I believe in a research culture that recognizes a diversity of contribution to science and society, that celebrates high quality and impact research, and that values sharing, collaboration, integrity and engagement with society, transmitting knowledge from generation to generation. So if you agree and if you share this value, please sign the agreement. If you want to know more about this agreement in Italian, unfortunately, but in the last slide you also have one in English. We invited Silvia Bottero from the European Commission, and she presented this initiative for the reform. It was a quick process, as you can see. Started at the end of 2021, and the agreement was launched in September 2022. It was a collaborative writing effort, and on December the 2nd, 2022, there was the election of the steering board. We also have an Italian member. Why do we need a reform of the research assessment criteria? Because the research process is changing. It's more and more data intensive. Publications are no longer the only output. We see more collaboration, and we need more interdisciplinary research, for instance, to tackle issues like climate change, and we need reproducibility and integrity. And also, as you can see in the scoping report, towards a reform of the research assessment system, these major evolutions are not aligned with the metrics that often dominate assessment, which are the impact factor and the citations. The race for publication, the so-called publish or perish culture, comes at the expense of quality, integrity, and trust in research, what we saw in the first part this morning. And the current system just rely on journals. So it does not recognize the diversity of contributions, negatively affects quality and integrity, as we saw in the first part. It boosts predatory publishing, and we will discuss next time in talking about open access, sorry. It's the only way that we are still wasting millions of dollars and euros in subscriptions system. And don't forget, never forget that we are talking public money. Reduce innovative ideas as risky because we publish only mainstream, and it's a waste of time and money as nobody is publishing negative results. But if you don't know that an experiment in this way give a negative result, you ask maybe for money to rerun the experiment because you don't know that it's negative in this way. So it's really a waste of time and money. How is it doing? By signing this agreement. And the main, I would say, purpose of this agreement and of the new rules is a research culture that recognizes collaboration, openness, and engagement with society and provides opportunity for multiple talents. The pillars of the agreement are ethics and integrity, the safeguard of freedom and scientific research, the independence and transparency of data, infrastructure, and criteria necessary for research assessment, as we were discussing during the break. Nowadays, Clarivate Analytics is a black hole. There is no transparency on the data. There is no transparency on the algorithm. And as we saw in the first part, at least one time there was a fraud because the number of items published in current biology was changed, okay? The principle again are focus on quality, and quality means also transparency, reproducibility, and reuse, and here is the link to open science, because if everything is open, as we were discussing for research integrity, the same is true for research assessment. So you will have open criteria, open number, open data, open algorithm, and everything would be in the open to be evaluated again. You also, in order to change the research criteria, you have to recognize the contribution that advance knowledge, and you have to assess the real impact of research, not the impact factor, okay? So impact of research implies effect on scientific, technological, economic, and societal nature. And you also have to consider the entire range of what you do on a daily basis. Okay. For instance, if you act as a peer review, if you give a lot of training, if you are a good mentor, if you teach also a method to your teamwork. Okay. And of course, you have to consider all the outputs, not only publication, but also data, protocols, methodologies, and so on. And you also have to, as we said, to different weight your assessment according if you are whether you are an early career researcher or a full professor. How to do it? As you can see, you have also some annexes to the agreement and giving you practical suggestions. So if our universities are going to change the criteria, you also have some practical suggestions. The commitments of the agreement. So basically, when you sign the agreement, you commit to recognize the diversity of contribution to and careers in research in accordance to the needs and the nature of the research, to base research assessment primarily on qualitative evaluation, abandon inappropriate use in research assessment of journal and publication-based metrics, in particular inappropriate uses of journal impact factor and H-index, avoid the use of ranking of research organization in research assessment. And I would stress for Italian listeners that our national research agency, ANVUR, signed the commitment back in October. The University of Turin signed the agreement in November. So our governance committed to these principles, okay? So in the next year, I expect the University of Turin to change the internal assessment criteria, abandoning impact factor, abandoning H-index, abandoning the rankings, the idea of rankings. And I expect our national agency to do the same because they signed the agreement. And as you can see here, the time frame is quite strict. So by the end of 2023 or within 1 year, you need to give the Commission the roadmap, okay? And in 5 years, you have to show the first results, okay? So it's very serious. It's not just a signature that you gave like often we do in Italy. There are legal bases for this. So the recommendation on access and preservation of scientific information, the Council conclusion on the future governance of the ERA, and the Council conclusion on research assessment. We will see them better next time when we will see the European environment. Please notice that within the new European Research Area policy agenda, the first 3 actions are related to open science. The first one is enable the open sharing of knowledge and reuse of research outputs, including the development of the European Open Science Cloud. We will see it next time. Propose an European copyright and data legislative and regulatory framework. And third, advance towards the reform of the assessment system for researchers and institutions to improve their quality, performance, and impact. Okay, so it's open science, the reform of research assessment, which are strictly linked, are on the political agenda at European level. It should be also in our institutions. Okay, here you have the references of the Council recommendation on open science and on research evaluation. You see that even in official documents from the European Commission, you see that the Commission acknowledges that research assessment system too focused on the use of some quantitative journal and publication-based indicators led to negative biases in terms of research quality, reproducibility, and integrities, and stresses that research assessment should include other research outcomes and processes. Okay, so it's written in an official document of the European Commission. And again, here on the Council conclusion on research evaluation, you see that the principle of the research assessment should go for qualitative indicators, recognize all forms of research and innovation output, and that data should be fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, should take into consideration diverse career pathways, including mentoring, leadership, entrepreneurship, data management, teaching, and so on. And as you can see here, all we were discussing before, but it's written in official documents of the European Commission. In practice, if you want to go for a reform of internal research assessment criteria, you have some case studies and good stories, good practices of innovation and change on the DORA website, like for instance at the Leiden University. You have also this rubric for analyzing your institutional progress towards a new research assessment. So you have all the possible tools there. You have also another annex to the COARA agreement, which is the toolbox with practical tools and options to consider. You also have the British model, which is the metric tide. It's a very, very good, food for thoughts if you want to go towards a reform of your assessment system and criteria. And there is also this report about indicator frameworks for fostering open knowledge practices. And you can see how many indicators. So again, everything is there. It's just a matter of a political choice and of a political support in changing the criteria. But the process is ongoing. Okay, the process is ongoing. As I told you, the agreement was launched in September, more than 400 signatories, so 400 institutions out there in Europe working on changing the criteria and no longer using impact factor, no longer using H-index, no longer using journal rankings. I want it to be clear. Here you have the Open Science Café we already mentioned. You also have a paper in Italian, but maybe you can read Italian, by Francesca Di Donato on this process of reforming research in Europe. And here you have Silvia Bottaro from the European Commission speaking in English and presenting the assessment reform in English. I think that's all. Yeah, that's all for us for now. So thank you for your kind attention. And if you have still 5 minutes, please go back to the Menti, so www.menti.com. The code is 58024965. I stop sharing. And in the Menti, I will ask you 3 ideas that this first lesson left in you. And we will see if there is something that I didn't address. So it's a very important feedback. Please go to the Menti 58024965 and answer to the question. So I stop sharing, and of course we have time now for questions. Let me share the Menti again. In the meanwhile, if you want to comment, or now you have the mic open. So first, 3 ideas: equality, engagement for all. Great. Here you have just 3 words that you can put, and then we will see a word cloud creating with your thoughts. Yeah. It's creating the word cloud, so I'm drinking. Now we should see more. Yes. Redefine excellence. Yes. Inclusive science. Open science is a human right. Right. Open science is good science. I'm happy that the COARA agreement, yeah, you should consider to sign. This idea of inclusion, I'm happy that this I managed to convey this idea. Deontology, that's a good point. Thank you. Human rights, again, so open science is a human right. The COARA agreement, predictability, I don't get it. Engagement, I like open knowledge, yeah. And again, human rights for all, yeah. For instance, what's strange, because again, the beauty of giving a lot of training is that every morning, every time is different. Usually, among the three ideas, there is the money. So the net gain of publishers, how publishers are getting money out of a job that you gave for free. And this morning we don't see it anyway. So it's the beauty. Every time is different. But I like the messages that you got. So I'm happy with the training today. Do you have any other question? Any comment? Anything you want to share with your colleagues? Or let me see if there is something in the chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Repeat please the number, but I think you saw it. Thank you. It's me thanking you for listening, for being with us. Do you have any comment, anything maybe you want to stress? In the chat or by voice? If not, we can say hello. Thank you again, and see you next Monday. So next Monday, we will see practical tools to open up every step of your research. So this morning it was just blah, blah on theory. And next time we will see the practice. Thank you again, and bye-bye. See you next time. Ci vediamo. Yes. Arrivederci. See you. Maybe you can say it in your own language.
May I? Do you
Yes.
hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, la rivedere. It's
Romanian.
I think it's in Romanish is the same in Switzerland. You know Romanish, the dialect.
Yeah.
Retroman. I think it's the same.
Yeah.
Posso dire arrivederci.
Arrivederci.
Alla prossima settimana.
Arrivederci.
Buona
Ci
giornata.
vediamo alla settimana prossima. Arrivederci.